Hey, Abe, welcome to the screen, and I'm going to let you start us off.
All right, thanks, Molly. Hey, everybody. It is a pleasure to be here. My name is Abe Gong, and along with James Campbell, I'm one of the two original creators of the Great Expectations open source library. And now it is my pleasure to serve as the CEO of the company behind GX, Great Expectations Labs. As Molly said, my job today is to kick things off by answering the question, why? In the next hour, you're going to hear from a lot of people involved with Great Expectations. You'll get a preview of GX Cloud, you'll learn about the upcoming roadmap, and you'll hear from users who've been actively using the platform for the last several months. My job is to focus on why we're building what we're building today. So roll back in time. We started Great Expectations almost 7 years ago with a goal that sounds pretty simple. It should be possible to always know what to expect of your data. Now, the goal sounds pretty simple, but it's actually not. If you've worked with data, and I think pretty much in the room here has, you've seen broken dashboards and machine learning models that were deployed upside down. You've seen drift in weird and unpredictable ways. And you know that there are hundreds of small consequential decisions that have to be made between getting raw data and turn it into something that's actually useful for analysis. And then hundreds more decisions as you do the analysis and then share the results back to people who care about them. And then, if it's useful, you have to put the whole thing in production and make it so that it runs smoothly and consistently over time. Mistakes, or even just confusion for any of those small decisions can blow up your results. And if that happens, it degrades the hard-earned trust and confidence that you've built in your company's data systems over time. So in short, it's really hard. Before founding this company, I spent almost 10 years as a data scientist and data engineer. And still, every once in a while, I wake up remembering that time that I worked all night sitting on the floor in Chicago O'Hare Airport because our sales team had a customer pitch the next day. And when we needed to share data with the customer. And when I reran our analytics on that data, I couldn't get the results to line up with the preliminary results that we'd sent the customer a few weeks before. So it was late, it was dirty. I remember that night vividly. And for me, the whole experience was colored by this overwhelming feeling of dread. Like the clock was ticking, the stakes were really high. We were trying to close a multi-million-dollar contract. And I needed to be able to stand behind my analysis. And I knew that in the time I had and with the tools that I had, I wasn't going to be able to get to a place of being completely certain. I wasn't going to be able to know that I knew what to expect of my data. So experiences like that drove me to work with James to create Great Expectations. We started from a pretty basic technical insight, the seed of an idea. And we borrowed from best practices in modern software development and took the idea of automated testing and asked, what would it take to bring that back to data? Now, in the software world at large, the notion of testing is very well established. It's really the only way that we've collectively found to take complicated systems and make it so that you can add features and make changes without those systems breaking unexpectedly. So for Great Expectations, we brought that concept back, and each expectation is basically just an assertion about data, what it should look like or how it should behave at a certain stage in your data pipeline. But we needed some new ideas too, because in the data world, some things are different than other kinds of software. For one thing, when you run your tests is different. In software, basically, you only need to run your tests when the code changes. Data needs that too, but in addition, data flows. And so it's important to be able to guard against upstream data changes. If somebody else makes a change in their system, you don't want that to affect your system in unpredictable ways, which means that you need to test every time new data arrives. It's more like a monitoring solution than just a pure CI solution. For another thing, why you change your tests is different. In the software world, you basically change your tests because you're changing the software. In the data world, you might change your tests because you're changing the pipeline code. But in addition, you might have to change it because an upstream business process has changed, or because something has changed in the world. The data generating process is just not the same as what it was before. You might also need to change because of downstream requirements. So privacy or compliance, or maybe you have teams that rely on your data. And previously it was only used for dashboarding, but now it's being used for analytics or machine learning models and more sophisticated analytics. And when you do that, you might need to change or tighten or adjust the expectations for your data. Last but not least, who can change your tests is different. In the software world, tests are basically an internal concern. The only people who are going to touch them are the people writing and maintaining the code. But in the data world, we have all of these other stakeholders, business people who care about the results, domain experts who may have unique knowledge about how the data is supposed to work. And in the most streamlined world, those people also need to be able to collaborate with you on the shape of your data. It's one of the reasons that we built Great Expectations, not purely as a testing layer, but also as a translation layer. Meaning you can automatically compile your tests into documentation to ensure that your tests and your docs always stay in sync. It's a really nice affordance for being able to keep multiple stakeholders who speak different technical languages on the same page about how the data works. So that was the core of the idea. And as we built over the last few years, we've fleshed out, not so much, well, we've certainly fleshed out the technical thesis a lot, but we've also fleshed out core principles for who we are as an organization. And now, as we're starting down the road to building a commercial product on top of the open source library, it's a good time to refresh these. So one principle is that the core of Great Expectations is open source and always will be. We'll add new things in cloud. There'll be additional features and like lots of good reasons to use that on top of open source, but the core is open source and we're never going to change that. On top of that, we got to where we are today because we have built for data developers. And by data developers, I mean people who are hands-on keyboard building and maintaining the systems that fuel the world's information systems. People who write SQL or Python, people who probably use Git. Most of the world doesn't speak those languages or do those things. And we believe that part of the reason Great Expectations has been so successful is we've built for the people who are really at the heart of data systems. The third principle is that even though we're building for data developers first, the only way to really solve data quality problems is with good collaboration. We believe that data quality isn't just a technical problem, it's also an organizational, a collaborative problem. And so Great Expectations open source and increasingly Great Expectations cloud are built with collaboration in mind as first-class workflows. So as we build, we haven't got everything right, and I'll be the first to admit that, but we've got a lot of things right. And it's been really nice across the last several years to see those decisions play out. One of the ways that you can tell that we got it right is just because of adoption. Today, there are hundreds of teams, or excuse me, there are thousands of teams using Great Expectations and hundreds of contributors to the open source library. We have teams in all kinds of industries, like fintech, logistics, startups and scale-ups, you name it, like almost any industry you can pick. We've seen lots of really interesting use cases. Like in COVID, we had city governments that were using Great Expectations to monitor statistics around infections and things like that. So real important load-bearing use cases within organizations, sometimes shared more publicly. And we have all kinds of different data teams that are using it too. There are analytics teams whose primary responsibility is getting information to help businesses make decisions. There are also data platform teams, machine learning teams, all kinds of things. Like data gets used in many different ways, and each team has its own unique flavor. It's been really cool to see Great Expectations being pulled in and adapted to the needs of all those different teams. If you look on PyPy today, you can go and look up downloads. We have millions of downloads, and actually we've had millions of downloads every month for a long. I'm just realizing I've never gone back and added up total downloads, but it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot because in January was the first month where we crossed the 15 million mark, over 15 million unique downloads of Great Expectations. So it's just been really cool to see that play out. Last year, Seattle data guy did a survey. And it was a survey specifically of data engineers. And one of the questions he asked was, which data quality tools are people using? It was really cool to see that Great Expectations isn't just the most popular tool, but within a hair's breadth of being more popular than all of the other named tools put together. So just I mean, we've always wanted to build something that was truly useful. It's really cool to see the tool that we've built get picked up and used that way, and to get to a point where we can confidently say that Great Expectations is the world's most popular data quality framework today. All right. In the rest of this presentation, you're going to hear more about the future, but I wanted to give you more about why we're building what we're building and how we got here. Just to close out, I wanted to say thank you. Thank you to everybody who's participated in Great Expectations over the years. That's partly people who are directly on the team, paid employees, people working at the company, but also everybody who's been a member of the community. Whether you've jumped into the awesome Slack community that we have, or if you've given feedback, positive or negative, we've learned so much over the years, and we're really appreciative of that. So I am looking forward to what we're going to share next and other things that are coming soon. Now more than ever, I'm confident that the core of what we're building is right, and that it's just going to keep getting bigger and better. And I'm excited to go on that journey with you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Abe.
Thanks, Molly.